and welcome to the second edition of Space in Africa's webinar series that is titled How to Make Revenue from Africa's Space Industry. My name is Mustafa Iderawumi, a senior analyst at Space in Africa, and I'll be your host for today. So Africa's space industry is on the rise, and with it lies inimitable opportunities for businesses to tap into. And these opportunities cut across different technology segments, including Earth observation, satellite manufacturing, satellite communication, and the rest. But the question for most people would be, how can we tap into these opportunities to make sales? Or more concisely, how can we put ourselves as a business owner to the forefront so that we can be able to tap into all these opportunities and collaborate better with African Space Agency? This is the kind of question that I'll be running through your mind. Then you are in the right place, because over the next 1 hour and a half, we are going to dive into this topic to see how businesses can make revenue from the industry. And let me introduce my speakers for today. So today I have Dr. Tidiane Ouattara. He's a space science expert at the African Union Commission and the coordinator of the GMS and Africa program. Also, I have Dr. Robert Vanzi. He's the general manager of AAC Space Africa. Also, I have Dr. Doreen Agaba. She is the technical lead at the Department of Aeronautics and Space Sciences at the Science, Technology and Innovation Secretariat in Uganda. Also, I have Dr. Yeshurun. He is the Deputy Director General of the Ethiopian Space Science and Geospatial Institute. Unfortunately, our last speaker, Mr. Mbulani, the CEO of SANSA, is unavoidably absent. So before we go into the program proper, let me just run you through how today's program is going to go. So firstly, I'm going to ask our speakers some carefully curated questions just to kick us off the ground. And afterwards, I'm going to entertain some questions from the audience. So this is where I would like to say a very big thank you to everyone that has joined in today. Thank you so much for honoring us with your time. We really do appreciate it. So if you have questions or you have some additional comments that you would like to throw to us, please kindly do that in the chat box, and I will ensure that we take as much questions as we can during the Q&A section. So to start off with Dr. Tidiane, I would like you to answer my first question. So I want you to answer this question from the context of the GMS and Africa program. And for our attendees that are not really familiar with what the GMS and Africa program is, let me just give you a little bit of backstory, right? So the GMS and Africa program is a flagship program of the African Union Commission. So it dates back to December 2007 during the second African Union, European Union Summit. And the program is co-financed by the European Commission and the African Union Commission. So the first phase of the program started in December 2016, and ended in December 2021. The second phase we just kickstarted last year in January is going to run through to 2025. So the program basically aims to improve, the ecosystem or the continent generally by leveraging on Earth observation solutions and infrastructures. So, Dr. Tidiane, so based on your experience as the coordinator of the GMS and Africa program, and with the fact that GMS and Africa program has a footprint in over 45 countries, and I've worked with like over 120 institutions, and stemming from the fact that one of the objectives of this webinar is to also demystify bidding processes in the continent. So could you share with us some examples of successful bid strategies that businesses have employed in the past that have made them able to work with you effectively in the ecosystem? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the organizers for inviting us to share a little bit what we have as modest knowledge on the matter. And thank you, and we'll learn also thanks to this webinar. We are always learning. This being said, the African Union Commission is just the secretariat of the African Union, and the African Union is made up of all the 55 African countries. And let's keep that in mind. Whatever we do at the African Union, it is the willingness of the member states. Therefore, coming back to the African space matters, whatever we do, it is approved through the member state process. That being said, your question is very interesting. Even if it is we are working on space, it is mandatory for us to follow the organizational process in terms of procurement. That should be very clear. And this is accessible online, how to do business with AUC, African Union Commission, and you'll go through the steps of the procurement. But what is important here, and this is where your question is relevant, how you can be successful in applying for a project. First of all, there are two types of, I would say through GMS, there are two ways to access to, I would say resources, financial resources to get the project done. One is through African Union Commission, what we call the Program Management Unit. I have the privilege and honor to coordinate. But the other one is through the consortia that are really the pillars of GMS in Africa. And a consortium is made up of leader, an institution that is leader, but made up of also with at least 5 institutions from 5 other African countries. What we did, for example, we allowed all institutions to use their own procurement processes. And that is very important. But we assess their procurement processes first to see if it is aligned with the AUC principles. We know in Africa, each country has its own rules. And this can be I would say it can be an obstacle for someone coming from another country. But the spirit of GMS in Africa, and all consortia will tell you that, we ask them to open the call to all African institutions, private sectors. Therefore, how do you get that? You get access, how to maximize your chance to get access to the market, to the contract. First of all, you have to know the procurement processes of the institution that is making the call. But that is one thing, and that is the small part. The big part is to have an intelligence on the organization, what they are doing, what they are expecting, what is their culture. Because developing business, it is a whole, and you have to look at all these components. And one key message to our space experts that are creating companies, please hire people that are very strong in business development. They don't need to be Earth observation or astronomy or space expert. Their role is to write a good business proposal. Most of the time we make the error, we create our company ourselves, we take the pen and we draft the proposal. My strongest suggestion will be know the culture, know what is happening, have intelligence, and most importantly, develop your network. It is very important because all is around and about human relationship. I'm not saying that they will give it to you because they know you, but knowing you, you can get a lot of information and you can even build what we call the trust and the confidence. Business is also about that, the sustainability. Don't come and do the work once for all. Innovate and look at what you can even offer them as innovation. They may ask for A. You can come with A, very well done, and tell them, I can even add B, and B will allow you also to win in terms of your business. I will stop here. I just wanted to be general. We'll come time to go to the details if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Tidiane. So, Dr. Doran, let me also pose the same question to you, but I wanted to analyze this based on your expertise from the secretariat. So what would you say are the requirements that would stand a business aside from their counterparts when they are trying to get a contract with you or with the secretariat?
Thank you for this invitation. I am honored to be on this panel. I hope I am audible. I will continue from where my senior has, Dr. Tidiane has started. We are building capacity in the country and continent for people to be able to have negotiation skills, assess service providers accordingly, build rapport even out of contractual discussions, be able to pre-approve service providers. So one of the things that would set a service provider aside from the others, make them unique in this aspect, would be their ability to provide a win-win situation, mutual partnership, in a sense that sometimes we come on the table that we may not be giant players in the industry, but there's always something we can offer. If you look deep enough in your negotiations, there's always something that you can offer, and you need to be very clear on the benefit that you're going to get. So providing an environment for mutual negotiation is very critical in the industry. We also have to have some sort of pre-approval. So it is not easy to, for example, enter this competition or market when we have not had this sort of under the covers, under the wraps, pre-assessment of the services that you're offering. It also helps when this particular entity has been engaged in similar projects in the country. So it may not necessarily be in the same field, or it could be in the same field but in a different sector. So for example, it could be that now it is Earth observation, but previously you were engaged in maybe another project. It helps because then we are able to assess how this relationship was fruitful and how the engagements led to proper planning and project implementation that was successful. So for any entity willing to, for example, be quick on their feet, say if it is a crisis or it is an urgent need, not have several months of setting up the documentation. So there are times when that is necessary, but there are also times when you need a quick solution. That could also set the player as apart from the others, that they're able to be quick, because one of the challenges in this industry is the lengthy time it takes even just to get a bill of quantities or just to reach a certain point where you think you're going to work together. So for now, that is what I can say. I believe that we will add more. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Doreen. So Dr. Yashurun, I would like to pose like a similar question to you. So we are aware that, you've launched 2 satellites, and you've also been involved in a couple of infrastructural projects, including some astronomy work too. So I just wanted to provide some insights into how the SSGI, how your agency's selection criteria is. So what is your evaluation processes like when you're awarding contracts for space projects? Can you just speak to that, sir?
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity to get in touch with different people. So, by the way, our 2 satellites are not purchased, but it was donated by Chinese government and private industry. So we don't have any experience on purchasing satellites, but we have experience on purchasing the ground station. So and also there are different items that we purchased by conducting international bid. So with this, we have our selection criteria. The criteria are mainly based on technical expertise and also on cost or financial. regarding technical expertise, we usually prioritize contractors with a strong track record of technical expertise in the field, and also experience by if the satellite, then we see for how long the companies of the contractor did the satellites, or how many satellites were manufactured by them, and this includes evaluating their past performance, qualification, and also capability to ensure that they have the necessary skill to deliver the product that we want. The other thing is the financial stability of the contractor. So with this, the financial stability of the potential contractor is crucial for us, because the company has to be stable, and because we see whether the company can provide the product as per our requirement within the time period of the time period that we put. So it shows us the resources, the capacity to fulfill the contractual negotiations. This involves evaluating the financial statements, credit saving, and also reference from previous customers. So we see these two. Also, we see the past performance, including the ability to meet the deadlines. Especially we focus on deadline, and also delivering high quality work as per our standard or as per our requirement. Also, are those who adhere to the contractual obligations. So this is the other criteria, and the other criteria is innovation technology. We want state-of-the-art technology for our use. So we see this in terms of we can say technical expertise. So also the company or the contractor has to comply with regulations and standards. So we see this criteria also, and also the compatibility and the cultural fit that we see, and also the company has to show us how it can manage risks, risk management skill, risk management experience. We see this also. So these are the criteria that we mainly focus on when we procure space products. So this is it.
All right, thank you, Dr. Eshun. So, Dr. Robert, my last question for this first question is to you, and I wanted to. So you are the only one here from the commercial sector. So I know that your experience would be vital to this particular question, so that you can provide context to what we've been talking about. So crafting winning bids is a very crucial skill in setting a company aside from its counterpart. And I remember that in 2021, your primary company was awarded a contract to build a ground station. So, and I know that apart from that, you've also been involved in a couple more after that. So can you share with us some practical insights into procurement processes in Africa? So how have you been able to stand out or stand yourself aside from the competitors?
Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. It's really an honor to have been invited. I've gone through the participation list and not sure I can teach anybody something about bids, but I do have a unique context, I would say, that I will just want to bring to the table here. My journey started at university, and my journey started with a bid. It was an unsolicited bid. There was no tender out. So just sort of a message to everybody here, you don't have to be a leader of industry to bid. You can be in any sphere of society and bid. And I think Africa is at a point of that, with this confluence of academics and industry, government, etc., comes together and allow us to create an African industry. I'm sorry, Mike. So just by way of introduction, where I come from, I have different perspectives. I'm from academic environment. 2 years ago, I joined industry. I've worked on AU programs, regional programs, national programs. So I've been sort of on both sides of the fence, if you wish. And usually all these programs starts with a bid. So it's a very important discussion that we're having now as Africa is emerging. So the context that I just want to sketch is that everybody knows this. Africa is emerging as an industry, a space industry. It's investing resources into it. And there's a huge potential for revenue growth, so there's huge potential for tenders coming out. And I'm excluding the comms markets here. One thing stands out, and you will see it in Africa policy and Africa space strategy, and all member states, is that a sovereign capability needs to be developed in Africa. So the days of doing business with Africa, I believe, have changed from merely a procurement exercise where you buy and sell. It is much more than that now. You must leave a legacy. At the end of the day, at the end of your contract, Africa must have moved forward and upskilled itself, infrastructure and people, all of that technology, to be a player on the global scene. The other thing that helps us a lot is obviously the emergence of the new space paradigm. With that, I mean scalable technologies, agile response to needs. It's current, it opens up unprecedented applications. And you have to embrace that. You have to understand it. You have to utilize that to craft innovative bids to these tenders. At this point, we must appreciate that most major bids will come from government still. So government remains a very important stakeholder in the Africa space industry, I think, like many other parts of the world. But this confluence of government, industry, academia, and society, that's where this vibrant bidding opportunities happen, at least from my experience. So there are some truths or truisms, if you want. If you bid, a bid must not surprise you. It must not catch you by surprise. You must not wait for it. You must not, not anticipate it. So just coming back to what Dr. Ouattara also said, business development, trust, relationships, these things are built over long periods of time. You have to have that in place. So you can at least anticipate, I'm not saying influence, but you understand the needs, the context, etc., of what is actually required. When you bid, you have to be different than the others. What differentiates yourself, your bid, from many others? You must also appreciate that the review of your bid might not be purely technical. There are limited technical skills on the continent, at least, who can evaluate very complex tenders. And one has to be cognizant of that as well. As I've said before, you don't have to be a master or a captain of industry to bid. You can do it from university perspective, and I think it's very important that we get our universities more entrepreneurially involved in space. Credibility is the name of the game. Whether that's your technology, whether it's your people, whether it's your heritage in space, it's, as the other speakers have said, very, very important. And then lastly, also something that Dr. Ouattara said, which I agree with very much, is that Africa has a culture of making decisions by consensus and based on trust. So yes, we are talking about bidding for a contract, but you must be cognizant and considerate of this fact, and that, you know, some decisions will take longer than others. Don't be opportunistic. That's probably what I'm trying to say. To win steps, I would say if you take just one, to win the bids, just one step back, is appreciate that we need to create an ecosystem. Many pieces are usually involved in building a sovereign capability in country or the region. And you as an entrepreneur, you must connect the dots. There might be a tender out for a ground station, for instance, but there's a bigger picture. What is that picture? You have to speak to that picture. You must also not always assume that the funders necessarily have the expertise to understand what you're putting on the table. I've said that before. So some level of education, I'm not meaning this in a condescending way, needs to be in place. Very important, also said earlier, you must know your stakeholders. What drives the KPIs of those stakeholders? And it depends on who you approach, whether it's business or government, at what level of government you pitch this, and who's responsible for that bid. You must speak to their KPIs in a sense, because there is some rationale behind that, why they put the bid on the table. Now, before you bid, obviously, business development, know your local environment. Every environment is going to be different. Yes, there's overarching regulatory policy and socioeconomic realities and policies, but there are definitely regional and country-specific flavors of them. Know your stakeholders, know what they want to achieve, and know how you can help them achieve that. And align your business and play to your strengths. Don't bid for everything. That might be counterintuitive, but it also plays into your, your credibility. Now, when you bid, and I will skip all of that because as been pointed out already, that is captured, you know, the mechanics of bidding. So I would just say credibility must be very visible in your bid. What I mean by that is 51% is not a pass rate in space. 99% is sometimes not a pass rate in space. 100% sometimes is a pass rate, a required pass rate in space. So if you do not have that heritage or that credibility, you need to form strategic partnerships, and we've been doing that over the past few years. Usually you need a multidisciplinary team, again, speaking to what the other speakers have said. You can't just put a technical proposal on the table and ignore the regulatory aspects, or ignore the business side of it, ignore the legal side of it. So you have to incorporate that in your team and your offering. And then maybe just lastly, you know, be realistic in what you put on the table. Don't overpromise, because that will bite you at some point. You have to translate your technical solution into practical impact, and maybe I'm closing off now. But you don't just sell the satellite. You must show the bigger picture again. Scalable is always good. Sometimes there's not money for a constellation, but you know, a single satellite with certain utilization might be good. If you can sketch the bigger picture and see how the client then uses that to increase his own revenue stream, etc., etc. So in closing, the most important aspect of a winning bid, I would say, is that the impact, the social impact, must be visible, especially here in Africa where resources are limited. And here I talk about return on investment and social impact. Not very easy to show always. What is the return on investment of a specific service that you put in place? It's not that obvious, and do not assume that the funder has done that. You have to be able to show that to them as well. Sustainability and the sustainable use of space. It needs to be some section in your bid. You have to address it. And what legacy does your intervention in a country leave for that country? Before and after. Very important. And think back to what I've said. Africa wants a sovereign capability. How have you contributed to that? If you as a business can do that, then you've differentiated yourself. You've created long-term relationships, and that's the basis for more business. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that comprehensive response. So back to you, Dr. Tidiane. So when you were speaking the other time, you made mention of different parts that makes up, what how a business comes out to potential to a contract when bidding. So I want to talk about one critical aspect, which is about best practices from a standpoint of, okay, best practices are essential for standing out in the African space market. We all know that. So based on your experience, what would you say are some of the strategies that have proven effective for positioning companies as leaders in this rapidly evolving market? So how can businesses best establish a strong reputation and track record for themselves?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would say, and I will repeat that to all the audience, the space business is not different from the normal business. Therefore, the content is different. The culture may be a little bit different in terms of knowledge and tradition, but the process is about business development. Therefore, the first strategy, it is at the companies or even institutions level, let first be very well equipped. What does it mean? In terms of infrastructure, true, but in terms of human capital, let have people very well qualified. The space market depends on the need of the end users. And to address the need of the end users, you should have human capital capable to translate the needs into opportunities. It is very important. And Dr. Robert said all. Honestly, he said all. You have qualified people, and therefore, you have to recruit based on transparency and knowledge. And also, you have to be able to recruit talented young people or experienced people that are looking at innovation. Sustainability comes with innovation. You should not continue doing the same thing for years and years, mainly in the space arena, where things are going quick and very quick, either in terms of equipment, either in terms of ideas, either even in terms of environment, business environment, regulations changing quickly. You have to adapt, and to be able to adapt, the human capital will be the key for the sustainability. Innovation, and the innovation is coming from two angles. You have, if you are a private company or an institution, you have to be strongly linked to other companies, either in Africa or out of Africa. It is important to have a network. And as Dr. Robert said, work on your strengths. There is no opportunity here for stretch, what we call, the stretch skills, meaning where you are not very strong, you want to try, when you are competing with others and you want to be the first, let call others that are strong in this area and you complete with your strength. You can learn while you are moving, but let team up. And I'm telling everywhere I'm going, space by nature is a kind of subject nobody can afford alone. No nation can afford alone. By essence, by the root of the matter, you have to team up, you have to create collaboration, be continental, be international, whatever. That is important. And the second key point, I said innovation, human capital, strategy for network, etc. But the key important thing, I said, and I'm telling the space expert, team up of those who are very strong in regulatory, those who are very strong in trades, those who are very strong in other matters that are different from space, but that will allow you to package and to make a good offer. When you go to an institution, you have to have some intelligence on that institution. And there are two types of contracting process or procurement processes. I would say one is on the good and one is the consultancy. Whatever the type is, if you are competing, if you want to be sustainable, let be in the heart of the business of the organization. I'll give you an example. You want to do business with the African Union Commission, and you don't know nothing on the organization. You just put your ideas on the paper. You are sure, 200% sure that you'll fail. You just get the contract by accident, I would say. If the competitors, they come, they look at, oh, these people, this is the trends, this is where they are coming from. Oh, the next 10 years, this is where they will be. What they will do, they will not only do the job, but they may want even to propose for improvements, some of the ideas to, and you have to know also two things for the sustainability. There are two ways of chasing opportunities. One is to create opportunities, and one is to jump on existing opportunities. Both can work, but in jumping on existing opportunities, for the sustainability matter, think of creating opportunities. It is subtle, what I'm saying, but this is the business. You are providing a service you are providing Tidiane with a service. I want an orange for $5. You come to me and said, Tidiane, I can give you the orange for $4. This is what Robert was talking, the financial matter. But in addition to that, Tidiane, I will give you an apple for the remaining $1 you want to put, on the 4 to make 5 for the same single service. I'll give you 2, and these are. If I'm in need of apple, and you would have already done your homework, knowing that Tidiane need also apple, you believe me, you'll make a difference. This is the kind of exercise the sustainability reside on all that. And Robert also said that. I'm quoting him because this webinar could stop there. The culture in Africa. In Africa, people want to trust you first. They can start small with you because they don't know you. Even if you are friends, they don't know you in business. When you confirm what you can do, when you perform well, when they trust you, Africans, they don't change usually. We can be stuck with something for years. We don't have a problem with that. And you will build your ecosystem, as said by Robert. I will stop here. These are some tricks. Instead of looking at only the rules, you have to look at beyond and behind the rules. And secondly, you have to be able to read what is not written. All that can be done through network. When we are inviting people for meetings, for conferences, some of them, they just look at the presentations. What do you do with your time in networking? This is where several big businesses happened. And you have to think of it. Thank you. I will stop here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tidiane, for that very insightful response. So one of the things you made mention of is understanding the priorities of African states. So in understanding their priorities, you'll be able to determine the kind of solutions or services that you would sell to individual ones. More like there's no one shoe fits all stuff for the African market. You have to understand the terrain, have to move from coast to coast. So Dr. Doreen, my next question is going to you. So another aspect that I want us to look at is the budgetary allocation across the countries. So for Uganda, I want you to tell me about the budgetary allocation and how that stems into the priorities in your country. So what are the things that you are looking at to do in the next 5 years, for instance? So, and I want you to tell me how that also relates to to how you allocate your budget that you get from the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As a panelist, I'm learning a lot because I am representing the people that would be consuming, and then I'm hearing from people representing entities that would be potential yes, suppliers. So this is interesting, an interesting mix of panelists. We recently changed our budgeting structure. Previously, it used to have specialized projects of interest, but now critical programs have been identified, and so the budget is no longer per sector or per entity, but rather per program. So critical programs that go into technology and innovation that very clearly would improve the social value of our economy have been made priority. And so you would find that this particular program will affect different sectors or different ministries. So we happen to fall under those priority programs for technology development. And so the allocation has, for now, it is the highest allocated given budget. I mean, this is the trend that is happening actually across the continent because we see the need. And the justification, each of the activities happening under that, including space, has to offer justification and express, show how they have done an assessment and evaluation on how this is adding value socially, how this is sustainable. So it's no longer about, okay, we want to do this in the next 6 months pilot and see how it goes. No, you have to demonstrate the social value. You have to demonstrate the risk of investment because there's a lot of investment that is being put into infrastructure, technology, machinery. So you have to demonstrate the risk that is involved so that is accounted for in the budgeting and how the finances are going to be released. You, as has been mentioned, your suppliers and partners have to be credible. And of course, it is better if these have been also active in other projects previously, so trust has been built. Liability and insurance and has to be, because these are capital intensive projects and programs, not just for space and even others that feed into technology and development. So that is being looked at very critically. So the risk is a big component. So you have to assess the risk, assess the benefit. There is also a big component in allocating these budgets to the projects that goes into interusability. So there is a project that is able to demonstrate several offshoots, takes advantage over another one that is just following one line of benefits. So these particular technology development program projects are now almost becoming interlinked. So one infrastructure, heavy investment into one infrastructure as per the budget allocation will be able to serve, should be able to serve. You're supposed to demonstrate that it can serve research and innovation, it can serve alternative technologies. Sustainability, as already discussed, is very key. So when you demonstrate that, yes, these are capital intensive projects, they've been given priority in terms of program budget allocation. However, we are saying that this investment will be useful for the next this many number of years for these sectors. So that continuity. So another key element that is going into budgeting is the matter of innovation that Dr. Tidiane has spoken about. So previously, because of the program of the project-centered budgeting under different entities, there has not been that sort of assessment of how this interlinks together, and also there was a sort of gap in how quickly the technology is going to become obsolete. So since technology is moving very quickly, our budgeting systems allow for such capital intensive investment, but you have to provide an assessment or you have to provide information that shows that this will be useful. It's not now we are not going to purchase again. After 2 years, we have to go into the whole infrastructure all over again. So there is goodwill at the moment for any technology and innovation that is able to increase the social value of our people. So the focus is social value. What I think Dr. Tidiane would call the last mile user in terms of earth observation, but really you have to demonstrate, once you demonstrate that the value of an individual Ugandan is going to improve, then that project working upwards to what is feeding into such a project increases its chances to be under those priority projects, and already there is provision for those funds to be given or even increased. Even when the budgeting process has been finished, there's this provision for supplementary, and as long as you can justify the factors that I've spoken about, that you have done your groundwork. And I do agree with Dr. Tidiane that we have to either train our existing experts in these skills of entrepreneurship and being able to negotiate and understand the pros and cons and the risks that and the undertones that are not being mentioned in some of these discussions, and negotiation skills, and saying not being in a sense that we are always saying, okay, since I'm not a big player in this sector, I'm receiving all the time. There is always something that we are offering. And the people designing the contracts, as we have heard from Dr. Fancy, they know that there is something, because to design such a document, you are having in mind that you're going to benefit. It's not that you're offering and then you're not going to benefit. So we as receivers have to know that they are benefiting from what is written in the document and more. So we also have to come and assess what are we offering or what are we losing. Because you see, even in this industry, you can lose something as big as an orbital slot without realizing. And so we have to be aware and alert of what are we offering, what are we losing, and how do we now counter what we are obtaining. I have gone off a bit on the question, but that is our budgeting line. It is on priority programs that feed in technology and innovation and directly affect the social value of our economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Ma'am. So the same question for you, Dr. Yeshurun. I also wanted to talk about your budgetary allocation for this year and talk about the priority project that you're looking at. So what are those things that you set out to achieve this year so that companies can know how to align their businesses and their solutions to the priorities within their country? Thank you. You're muted, sir.
Yeah, the space budget, usually it is allocation is mainly based on the priority of the country, and it is based on national development plan and also the priority of the institute. So when we come to our institute, this year we are planning to develop satellites and also AIT center, and also there are other projects. So especially the capital project, the capital budget will be allocated to these projects. So last year also we tried to have these products, and we launched a bid, international bid, but we didn't get enough competitors, so that we canceled that bid. So this year we are expecting to get more number of competitors on the bid. So we have already allocated enough budget to run that project. So we are very eager and very interested to continue this project. So when we come to the budget allocations, we mainly focus on research and development, and then infrastructure development, and also satellite development, including the launching service, and also the capacity building. We especially focus on the capacity building. Even when we procure satellites or other products, we mainly focus on not only the product but also the capacity building. Our engineers have to be trained with the project itself, and then we want to manage, or we want to have the skill to utilize the products. So the other thing is international collaborations. So we prioritize by these issues for the budget allocation. So so our strategic priorities are this, and then we expect to work with partners from Africa or from other international partners. So with collaboration, I think we can do that. That's what I say.
Thank you very much, sir. So like he mentioned, companies are also required to show how they'll be able to train their engineers on those projects. So it's not just about them buying those projects or procuring those projects from clients. It's also so that they're able to take on new projects internally. So my next question is to Dr. Roberts. Dr. Roberts, we are quickly running out of time, so I would like you to answer this question in 3 minutes or less, right? So we have also identified as contractual considerations is one of the crucial aspects of business development generally. So can you share examples of maybe a complex contractual negotiation that you have navigated within the ecosystem? So just share that and tell us how you were able to like navigate through all the red tapes. Thank you. Dr. Roberts, you are muted.
Sorry about that. I can't refer to specific examples, but maybe just a broad point that I want to bring across. When you negotiate contracts, you should be in a position of strength when you do that. And there's a few things that you can put in place to ensure that. Technology is one. You must have a very solid technology background. You must have very skills background. You must have heritage. If you've got those three things, then at least you have a very powerful seat at any negotiation table. So I think for anybody bidding, setting up his consortiums, or however you want to put that, negotiate from a position of strength. That is usually what you try to achieve. I do not see innovation and collaboration as mutually exclusive. I think if it is, then the structure of whatever entity you put in place or the partners that you've chosen is not optimal. These sound like very general comments, but they are very, very valid, I would say. Complex negotiations usually revolve around intellectual property. Remember, Africa wants a sovereign capability. It does not want leakage of IP if it's not regulated. I must refer to unregulated leakage of IP. The ownership of IP also has an impact on liability, and this has been mentioned. Do not underestimate liability clauses in contracts. It can literally mean that your satellite does not fly. If you build a satellite for a government usually accepts liability. That's fine. If it's a business-to-business deal to build satellites, then it comes, then the liability needs to be covered by the business. That is a very, very expensive commodity that you have to be aware of. So yeah, liability and IP, I would say, is things that you have to really be careful about. Then obviously there's security considerations. The export of anything across a border makes these very complex. one should not just stop at putting the contract together. The execution of the contract is very important. Logistics in Africa and the places where I've been, simply exporting there could be a challenge. You need somebody on the ground, you need local visibility and localization there. So those are just sort of my high-level thoughts around navigating through complex agreements, but they can be very complex. Remember, we're international business, doing regional business, funded perhaps by a national government of sorts. So all of these things, do complicate matters.
All right, thank you very much. So before we go through the last round of questions for our speakers, this is to the attendees. Please, if you have any questions, so that we don't waste any time when we get to the Q&A session, if you have any questions or any comments you'd like to drop and you like any of our speakers to attend to, please drop it in the chat box, and we'll try and to take as many questions as we can when we get to that session. So Dr. Tidiane, my last question for you today, sir. There's also something that is very important in doing business in Africa or any region, basically, and that is the compliance requirements across the board, right? We know that compliance requirements are crucial for sustainable business operations. So how does the AUC facilitate the alignment of regulatory frameworks across African countries to ensure a very consistent and supportive environment for space-related revenue generation? So are there like very specific compliance challenges that have also been identified? If yes, what are you doing to mitigate this?
Yeah, thank you for your question. This is what I was saying. Space per se is coming in an ecosystem. It is in an environment for business. The African Union has established what we call the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is based in Accra, to look at all these aspects of doing trade together as a continent, how to facilitate the mechanisms, the instruments. Therefore, the space will take it as an opportunity to do the space business, because the space per se, as I said, is not different from other activities in terms of business development. You want to make money, you want to make profit. Other businesses are doing the same thing. Now, the specificity for the space will reside, one, in proposing to institutions or citizens specific service. I'm not talking about products. For the Earth observation example, the example of the Earth observation, we have to move from providing maps, graphics, statistics to people, to providing them with information that they need to make their business. I'm always giving the example, two examples. One, University of Ghana. Under GMSN Africa, they developed an information service. They are providing fishermen community on the weather forecast, the weather temperature, the marine forecast, the marine temperature, so on. The association is using this information to inform the fishermen when to go or not to go on the sea. They are not providing them with maps. They even didn't go to school. But it is a huge market that exists in terms of fishermen community. That is an example, meaning doing business in space now for the Earth observation applications people, we have to look at now the information service, meaning what is important to give to others that are not space experts to move on with their own business. I'm also giving the example of SICOS in Kinshasa. SICOS being a regional organization, they are providing captains of boat, for example, with information on the water level in the Congo River. The Congo River, as you know, this is where 80% of the economic transactions in Central Africa is happening. when a boat is killed or stopped or is stuck in the water, the impact on the population and the economic impact, you can look at that. Therefore, in developing specific product for them, which helps them to navigate through this river and offer the services in timely manner and in efficiently manner, you make a difference. Now, when you go to contracts, to bid, sorry, you have to come with this understanding. It is true also for the other segments of the space. I don't want to dig on that. The space, as you know, there are 3 segments: ground segments, downstreams, and space segment. Whatever you develop, make sure that you are coming with exactly what people need. If you make the difference there, you will see that they will be more interested in you than the others. The African Continental Free Trade Area is an opportunity for all space companies. Unfortunately, we are starting with the corpus of the private sector in the space arena in Africa. They are not numerous. And this initiative, the African Continental Free Trade Area, this initiative can facilitate several things. And let's see, or let's have opportunity to talk about all the details. But for the African Union, when we are dealing with the consortia, we just make sure that their procurement principles are aligned with our procurement principles. And if that is the case, we allow them to use their own processes to, to have the contract. Again, all these information are online. You can find that on their website. I think it's not really a big deal. What is the big deal is what is not written and how to get the intelligence around all that to make a difference, either at the technical proposal or financial proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So we have spent a lot of time on the discussion, so that we can also keep everything short between the timeline that we gave. I'm going to move straight to the Q&A session now. And we already have some questions from the audience. So if you have any other question, please just drop them so that we can take as much question as we can before we round up. So, Dr. Tidiane, this question is for you. This question says, how can we access open source space data to build on our space business model? So this person is asking how they can get their hands on open source space data for their business.
This one, I don't know how to answer to it, but I would say there are several open source data free of charge. Now, depending if you are an individual or if you are in an institution. And again, the African Union Commission has signed an agreement with the European Commission on free access to Copernicus data. If you are an institution, I would say write to me. I will connect you with Meshach, who is really leading it in my team. And we will see together how to connect you. And there are many other African institutions we are inviting to consider that. Secondly, all the GMS in Africa, if it is about Earth observation data, all the GMS in Africa consortia are invited to allow people to access to all kinds of data they have access through GMS and Africa process. Also, what we want to do is just to invite African space agencies, and that will be one of the mandates of the African Space Agency, to invite them to make their data available to all African citizens. But for now, we do have the agreement with the Copernicus through European Commission. They can have access. And on the website, there are many other sites, where people can have access easily. This is what I can say, with respect to this question. But they can connect to us, or they can reach us, and we'll make sure that we provide them with detailed information.
All right, thank you very much, sir. So the next question would go to Dr. Doran. Dr. Doran, someone asked regarding human capital and innovation in African countries. So the person is also wondering if, so let me take Uganda, for instance. So the person is wondering if you think that in Africa currently, we have enough human resources to take on, projects without, any external assistance. And the person is even coming from the fact that some of the universities and, tertiary institutions doesn't even have, offer a space program. So what would you say to this, Ma?
Thank you. That question is hitting home. The discussions on how we are going about our human capacity development have been taking place within the industry circles. Some success stories and some not so successful moves have been discussed. We continuously have to keep evaluating what sort of human capacity we are talking about. And we also have to continuously keep an open mind on how we are training these people. Because the industry is quickly evolving, we have to bear in mind as a continent some capacities, combined capacities that we need to have if we are going to call ourselves a spacefaring continent. So I have quite strong ideas on the subject, but I'll share something small in the interest of time. I believe that the way we are going about it needs some thinking. For example, I can just give a quick example. Recruiting people or getting experts from universities and quickly sending them for specialized training may not be that advantageous. We need to first have the first phase of training domesticated, because that means that the component of trainers is lacking. And then the continuity is difficult. So we continuously have to keep sending. Number two, even though we don't yet have the facilities to domesticate the technology, there are versions. I can give an example that you can get a version of the same payload and domesticate the technology. You make sure that a team is understanding that version of the payload locally. So we also have to bear in mind the time factor. So how much time does it take to send people? How long will they come back and then be valuable to the system? How much investment are you putting in this? Could it be easier to bring some few experts on ground and start domesticating the technology? We have to be concerned on what sort of technology, human capacity we are developing, how we are going to get value out of this human capacity investment, and the continuity of this. So to answer your question, do we have that sufficient human capacity for a sustainable program on the continent right now? I would say we need to perform an assessment. Space in Africa is good at doing such an analysis. Let us do an analysis of the expertise that we have both on the continent and those that are off the continent but really should serve the continent. And then let us provide guidelines for the future. But personally, I think we need to go about it differently if we are going to domesticate a sustainable African space industry. We need to rethink how we are doing the capacity. It's not so much even about the curriculum, because picking someone who has done physics, has done engineering, and giving them that room for specialized training is not really a big issue. We will reach, once we need those specialized courses, we will reach that point. But at the moment, saying we don't have those specialized curriculum courses is not the problem. It is how we are thinking. Are we thinking about the big picture of domesticating this technology? Are people really able to come back home and give value for that investment that was put in their training? Is the question we have to ask ourselves. And if it's not working, we should be open to say, okay, next time we need to try a different model, or we need to reassess how we went into this negotiation. That's why I said this is interesting, because I'm sitting with some people that will be offering this service and I would be the one on the other side. But we have to rethink even the negotiations that go into that training. What am I getting vis-a-vis what I am giving? What is its sustainability? How will it fit into the bigger picture? Does this really change the industry in the country? So for me, it goes beyond the curriculum. It goes beyond how many people. It's not even so much about the number. It has to go to feed into what technologies we want to domesticate, how we are going to domesticate them, how those technologies are capable of evolving into bigger and more diverse innovations. And so we need to rethink. My final word statement would be that we need to rethink our human capacity development strategy as a continent if we are going to be sustainable in this industry. So if we are imagining a time when everything else is shut down and we are able to sustain ourselves, that is a scary thought, and we have to start feeding into that requirement to review how we are training our people, who we are training, and how we are investing in this training. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer. So, Dr. Robert, this is for you. So this person is wondering if space businesses, if they have a hand in promoting standardized compliance practices among other satellite technology partners. So more like, are there specific regulatory considerations that tend to impact maybe small satellite ventures more significantly?
Yeah, there are many, and we do not have time for this. I can maybe just mention the big ones. We are all governed in some shape or form by the Outer Space Treaty, the Liability Convention. I referred to that earlier. That really has sting. It comes at a huge cost to mitigate liability, either in your processes and then, quite frankly, in your insurance. There's a registration convention. Nobody will launch a satellite if it's not accepted and mandated and registered in your own country. There's a whole host of frequency registration legislations that you have to follow on a ground station side, on the satellite side, especially if you have global coverage. And then, as Tilian said, a multitude of bilateral, multilateral agreements. I'm very glad that there is this push to get at least sort of an holistic or heterogeneous, homogeneous paradigm in Africa. But, you know, we are going to do business on a global level, so that remains an issue. There are specific ones like engineering. Our company, when we do work, you know, we always bring to the table the fact that we are ECSS. We follow the standards, and those in the room who understand, so it's accepted by ESA. We've got product assurance plans because it speaks to our credibility. You know, then there's ISO, etc. On the engineering side, and then also on the export side, especially if there's dual use controlled items. That is a game all on itself. You can't just export and newcomers to the industry, you know, they do not anticipate the delays that can cause. So I think those are the things that we usually bring to the table when we speak. I mean, we have to. We are a global citizen. We are a responsible global citizen in the industry, in the space industry, because ultimately it is a limited resource, space, and we have to use it responsibly.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So I want to sincerely apologize to the attendees if your questions have been unanswered, but we are on a very tight schedule. So I'm very sorry for that. But one thing I can do or say is that all our panelists, they are very approachable. You can reach out to any of them via any social media platforms, and you can just keep the conversation going. So anything you want to ask them directly, any conversation you want to ask with them directly, you can reach out to any of them via LinkedIn or any other social media platforms, and they would answer you. So on that note, I want to say a very big thank you to everyone that tuned in today. Thank you for honoring us with your time. And to our panelists, I want to say a very big thank you. Thank you for imparting us with knowledge, and thank you for sharing with us your lived experiences. We really appreciate it. So one bit of information again. So like I said, this is like the second of our webinar series. So the next one is going to be in October, on the 20th of October. We are going to put out the deets about that one in the coming weeks so that you'll be aware of what we are talking about. But be rest assured that we are going to be picking different aspects of the industry, different aspects of what makes the African space ecosystem a unique ecosystem. And we are going to explore that with different speakers, with very experienced speakers, so that they can speak to us from different angles, and we can explore all this together. So thank you once again for joining in, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.